Last week, I promised you that we would be meeting the producer and drummer for most of the Out of the Ashes albums. And here he is, Aron Bicskey. Okay. I promised you that this week I would be interviewing somebody that had been key to the production of all four of our albums. And here he is. This is Aron Bicskey.
Hello.
Right, now Aron played drums on all four of the albums, and he did the sound production on the final three, on the most recent three of the albums. I think that about sums it up, doesn't it, Aron?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I started off with the Garden
drums,
which I was playing drums on from here. Well, not from here, but from Sheffield, where I'm based. And then after that, we went to your place to record.
You started arriving down at Oliver's with heavy warnings to bring lots of pullovers.
Yes, yes, yeah. I had plenty of warning from Andy and from yourself to make sure I don't freeze to death.
Yeah, we would. I remember Mark. That's probably why we never saw Mark again. He spent the entire first album wearing a coat. he never stopped wearing a coat at any point. Yeah. I don't think. But it was January, come on.
It was every time. It was sort of quite cold every time we did the album, wasn't it?
Was it?
Pretty.
Did we always do it in winter? We might have done. I don't know.
Yeah, because that's when I probably weren't that busy with everything else.
I don't know.
So we thought, oh, let's just record. We can't go and potter in the garden.
Maybe that's our moment of inspiration is in the winter.
Maybe.
But anyway, this is about you. You came from Hungary, so tell our audience how you came from Hungary, how you came into music, how you came to be a drummist.
Yes, yes, I'm from Hungary, so I grew up there. My family's there, everybody's there, and I studied classical music actually, because when I was young, coming from a Christian family, and I figured that rock and roll is probably not particularly a sort of compatible lifestyle, at least what I've seen at the tender age of 12 or something. So I figured that it's probably a safer bet to do classical music because there's not that much drugs in rock and roll. I was wrong, by the way, but
that's good.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It might as well be rock and roll, but hey, I didn't know. I was young. But the other thing was, it's more, Hungary is a small country. There's like 10 million people. So basically it's like the population of London, right? So I figured if I want to actually make a living doing this music thing, rock and roll is probably as hard as it gets over there because it's just such a small market.
Yes.
And at least with classical music, you have government-funded orchestras in major cities, and
that was very hard-headed of you at the tender age of 12.
Go figure.
Goodness! Now you left home at 15 to go off to a conservatoire. Is that what it would have been called?
Sort of thing. Yeah.
A conservatory of music to play
the triangle. Yeah, all sorts
and other bashy things.
It was great, actually. Even though I wasn't really. I wasn't really into classical music that much, to be honest. But again, I'm like, well, I want to do music, so the formal education over there it's all classical, really. So kids from the age of 6, they go to after school classes doing classical music, and then if you want to carry on sort of higher education, there's going to be classical. There's more variations, different things that you can do, but back then really it was classical music, or there was few schools that did sort of popular music, but it was cool, playing the timbs, the vibes, the marimba, xylophones, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. I think I would do it again.
Sounds good. Well, it was probably a pretty good training, wasn't it? What you've ended up doing.
Well, it was, even though probably I don't use a whole lot of what I've learned in terms of I haven't played the vibes or the marimba for a long time, but to understand classical music, and I think it's more the discipline that it's in that genre, because it's so precise, everything is so dead on. There's no room for errors really, because that counts as failure. You can't mess up.
That's
It's
really
not like on a gig when you're just like jazzing and then it's like, oops, that's all right, and then anything goes.
Now this brings to mind one of the first times that you stayed with us at Oliver's. I remember you had Mark Wilson with you. Mark was doing the production. You were there to play drums, and a pretty darned phenomenal drummer you are too. But
very kind.
You and sorry, I'm not being creepy. It's fine. But you and Mark were sitting. We'd had supper. I'd probably made you do the washing up, if I remember my general style. Probably.
Yeah, I guess that would sound true.
And we were sitting upstairs, and we were talking about recording orchestras. And I don't know how we got onto that, but clearly you had spent a lot of time being involved with orchestras being recorded. And it really struck me hard, because I think the thing that's worth saying here for the benefit of our audience is that when you record a band conventionally nowadays, each instrument, you'll probably record the whole band together to get a general groove track down. But then each instrument will be recorded individually, and then vocals will be put on at the end, having done a sort of a draft vocal at the beginning as a guide track. Then it will all be added at the end, and it'll be done in stages, and there'll be several takes on everything, giving us all the chance that we can to muff it up, which I do a lot. But when you're recording an orchestra, that does not happen, just as when we were recording bands in the 60s, and maybe even as late as the early 70s, I don't know, you would get the whole band into the studio and they would all be recorded. It had to be a perfect take, otherwise you would spend days and days there and it'd be exhausting. Yes. And of course you get orchestras in and they do takes pretty much immediately, don't they? Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I've seen or played in orchestras as we were recording, but mainly concerts. But just kind of knowing people, players who do, go to the studio in Budapest. Disney have different studios all around the world, and there's this guy who often got the call just to go in, and they literally just walk in, get the sheet music, the conductor comes in and hit record, and off it goes. They would just bash out these film scores like breakfast. It's remarkable, really is. But it's because it's what I said about the classical training is
so precise,
very, very strict. Yeah. And it has to be very dead on, otherwise it's not good enough. So it has that sort of thing. I mean, I guess that's what I didn't really enjoy in it. Partially, I wanted a bit more freedom.
Yeah.
But definitely, I really liked that discipline. I really liked that sort of purism, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's where I first realized, the conductor, when it walks in, a lot of people think, oh, what is he doing? Like, it can't be that hard, doing all
yes,
that.
I always thought orchestra conductors were for keeping time, but you've told me I'm wrong in that.
No, they do keep time, and they do give the tempo, and they obviously glue everything together because everybody is playing to their hand, but also they're the mixing engineers, because when you record an orchestra, you put up the decker tree, you put up the tree, so you got a lot of mics that kind of cover the whole, and then if you go fancy, you've got spot mics, like for the soloist would have spot mics, or sections would have spot mics, but ultimately they have to be balanced. Like if you hear an orchestra live, they they balance themselves out. There's the conductor kind of, doing that to the brass, doing that to the flutes, bringing them up, putting them down, dragging them back, expressing themselves. So that was probably my first exposure to a mixing engineer, so to speak, a conductor. So I guess back in the days that was what it was.
Yeah, because you told me at one point that there are actually competitions for conductors, and
yeah,
Japanese person that won.
Yeah, so it's like X Factor for conductors. We used to watch it on telly, and there was one particular year this conductor who won the competition, and he's from Japan, and he was doing a tour, and that particular city that I was in, we were the orchestra, and he walked in. We couldn't communicate. He didn't speak a word of English. We didn't speak a word of English or German or any other languages. He spoke Japanese. We spoke Hungarian, and so he had to pull the performance out of us with gestures, with whatever he could use, movements, expressions,
noises,
and it was remarkable. Like we sound amazing. This is so good, because he just managed to. Because obviously you think, oh well, the score is written, the dynamics are written, everything is written down, so therefore, no matter who's playing it or who's conducting it, it will more or less be the same. You would think.
Yeah.
But then there are nuances. There are things that a conductor brings in, expressions or tempos, swells, all sorts of different nuances that you can introduce to an already written piece of music that really brings it to life. So that was like, wow, this is amazing. Didn't realize.
I've got a burning question here, and that is that when a conductor does same conductor, same orchestra, same piece of music, but say 3 weeks apart or 6 months apart or whatever, will it be quite different the second time he conducts the same orchestra with the same piece of music? Or will he have a way of doing things that mean that he'll probably be fairly consistent?
I would think it would be fairly consistent.
Right.
Yeah. Unless he changes his mind. I mean, that's the beauty of it, that it kind of marginally changes from night to night, but generally speaking, because it's an organic thing.
Absolutely.
But if he's got the right tempos, I think most conductors would be fairly consistent, where good ones are.
So how did you go from that into being a sound producer?
Yeah, well, while I was studying, so I started to do some tours because while I was still studying, the older guys, they got gigs traveling in Europe, doing shows in theaters and concerts and whatnot, and then they would call me to the theater to dub for them. So that's how I kind of got into it. And when I finished my studies, I carried on doing work, and it was a great experience, because I kind of understood what it's like to work in that environment. And I thought, I don't know if I want to spend the next 35 years waiting for that triangle hit. That comes every 75 bars. But basically, most of the time, like, it depends what you play. If you play Karl Orff, Carmina Burana or something, it's mental. You don't have time to breathe. It's like it's 7 percussionists. It's literally mental. But if you play, some, more of a classical era, you sit around for 78 bars, 100 bars, and just counting. When you get distracted, 52, 50, was it 53 or 55? And then you start panicking. And then you try to see the cues, the little violin cues that come in, and it's like, I think that's where we are right now. And then if not, then I had one piece. I had one piece when I played the cymbal, and I literally there's one hit at the very end of the whole piece. So it's like, I don't know, 375 bars of pose for me. That's just sitting around waiting for that one hit. If you miss that, that's 100% failure rate.
Like, did you ever do it?
Not well. Yeah, of course I missed bits. There was this one piece where it was a choir piece, and it was beautiful. It was like I got very emotional every time he played that. And one night I was just looking at the stage, this choir is singing, and I just completely missed my part. I was just sitting there listening to the music. I was like, oh crap.
I didn't want to spoil it.
No, looking at the conductor sheepishly. I'll do it next night. Yeah, tomorrow will be fine.
I won't do that again, I promise.
Yeah.
Now, how did you get into be a producer then? So you've decided that you don't want to do this the rest of your days.
Yeah. So parallel to this, I was playing with different people, different bands, and there was this artist who was quite well known and well established, and I was kind of playing drums for him, and we did this live album, and I think that was exciting. It's like, oh wow, we're making a live recording. It's really cool. So I was just hanging around in the studio watching what they do, and it was more interesting than going to music history lessons. So I skipped a few lessons and then just hung around in the studio, and one day the guy said, I'm just gonna pop down for a loaf of bread or something, coffee or beer, who knows what it was, but he was doing some automation, so basically just drawing in volume changes, and he said, just carry on with that. I was like, okay, fine. Yeah, exactly. So I start clicking and dragging things and felt really important doing all that. And I got so enthusiastic that I said to the guy, I'll do your next record. Thinking,
and what did he say? Did he say yes?
He said, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why he said it. I don't know.
You'd obviously done a great job on that first set of automations.
And I thought, well, if I can balance levels, I can do anything. I thought to myself. I was wrong. Knowing what I know now, what I did not know then, just like I don't even know how I got it done. And of course I would do it very differently now and it would be better, but you just have to start somewhere. But I spent the next 9 months trying to put this record together, just learning, and it was mental, but yeah, it's a great opportunity.
So you moved
from there.
You moved to the UK when you were 21 or 23?
22.
22?
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle. And now you're a citizen, aren't you? So you've had to know.
I am.
So you now have to know all sorts of things that nobody else knows.
Yes. Yes.
What sort of examples of questions did you have to answer?
Well, my favourite is, if you're blind, would you need to pay TV license? That's one thing that you need to know if you want to be a British citizen. Otherwise, they kick you out.
So you're here and you're married to Krista and you're living up in Sheffield, and that's your recording studio?
Yes.
Is that your drum kit in the background there?
It is indeed. Yes.
He looks fondly, proudly at his drum kit, his baby.
Yes, we are friends.
I think probably I need to take up a little bit less of your time and actually say goodbye to you here and say a big thank you. Aron, I'm really hoping it's not going to be too long before we see you again in real life.
Hopefully.
But meanwhile, got any gigs coming up, or are you completely stopped gigging at the moment?
Oh, yeah, there's nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
But thankfully, the studio is going busy.
Yeah.
So that's all right. I mean, I didn't it's bad that there's no gigging, but actually last year was pretty good for me because it was just so busy all the time.
Until then.
For the past few years, especially summers, festivals and all sorts of gigs. So it was actually nice to just chill out a little bit,
Yeah.
turn down the heat,
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
don't go wild. So, but yeah, it's still. I wouldn't mind getting back to it now, to be honest. Like 1 year, it's cool, you know. But now, kind of, I'm itching to get out,
Get back out there.
make
I
some
think,
noise.
yeah, it's a bit how we feel as well. We want to get back out there now.
Yeah.
Aron, thank you very much indeed. And
Lovely to chat to you. Hopefully see you in person very soon.
that would be nice. Take care and God bless.
Bye.
Bye. So that was my friend, Aron Bicskey. And in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to be interviewing the person that played piano and keys on the Get Out the Boat album, who is a man with serious credentials. He's played for Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, Simply Red, just to name a few of them. And he's also a man that every Sunday he is in time to get to church to play piano in church in the morning. Wait and see.